welcome to Olsem Wanem. In this episode, we look at the importance of sign language and the challenges faced by people with hearing impairment or deafness. In this segment, we get them to tell their story and how they cope with life on a daily basis.
Many people with hearing impairment or are deaf are born to parents who can hear. Thus, this becomes a barrier to communication, not only with the parents but siblings and people around them as well. Often they use body gestures to communicate. However, this is not so effective. Many people who have hearing impairment face difficulties in moving around in public places and accessing services. In some communities, people with hearing impairment or are deaf are regarded as mentally disabled just because they cannot communicate with people around them.
General impression that we have is they are not useful people in the community, which is negative thinking. I want that to be changed. I want our community to have ownership to them and use their abilities.
People with hearing impairment or are deaf are not mentally disabled. The only disability they have is they cannot hear. John is born to parents who do not know sign language and siblings who cannot communicate using sign language, but he has come a long way and is now a deaf assistant teacher at Kalan Services in Port Moresby. John helps others like Henry, who is also deaf.
For many people who are deaf, going to a public school with everyone else may seem impossible due to barriers in communication, but 3 students have overcome this barrier and are now in a class with 72 other students in a normal public school. In this segment, we look at how these 3 students cope in class with everyone else despite their disability.
Not all children with hearing impairment are sent to school, but we visited 3 students in grade 5D at Ward Strip Demonstration Primary School here in the nation's capital that caters for 3 deaf students. Walking into the classroom, we were unable to identify the 3 students within the class as they look pretty much the same as everyone else. With the help of the class teacher, Ms. Dowaki, we were introduced to Valerie, Smith, and Geraldine. For Ms. Dowaki, having to teach 3 students with hearing impairment is another challenge. We spoke to her on how she communicates with them in class.
I leave them aside, I explain carefully to the children, then I go and concentrate on them. And if I cannot express all this to them in sign, I just the children in the class say, come and help me sign them and explain that to them. So the children come help me and explain to them.
Having Valerie, Geraldine, and Smith in this class has also enabled their fellow classmates to learn and use sign language as well. Having a class of 75 students knowing how to communicate in sign language is not so common in many schools in Papua New Guinea.
It would be a lot more better if all teachers throughout the country should go in and take sign languages to make life easy, because we are lucky to have all the services here of Kalang services here in Port Moresby, but there are some other places that you go throughout the country, you will not have all this. So if we have teachers who knows how to do sign language, it will make life easier for all these other children with hearing impairment.
educating children with hearing impairment is it's not easy. Because of the hearing loss, language and communication and even literacy it's a huge problem for them, because the mode of communication they're using is sign language. Because teachers in the schools are lacking in getting sign language being taught to them, or some ways for the kids to do the sign language, it's becoming a problem to educating children in there. So one of the advice I may give out is that we try to enroll our kids, try to support them, get some information from the resource centers that is in respective provinces. You can get some basic sign language so that we can help our kids to be educated just like any other kids in the schools.
Being unable to hear doesn't have to stop people from participating in activities that hearing people do. It is just a matter of being able to communicate using sign language.
Communicating with someone with hearing impairment can be very difficult, especially when a standard sign language is absent. Papua New Guinea uses the Melanesian Sign Language. Other countries have their own as well, such as the American Sign Language, Australian and British Sign Language. Organizations such as the Kalan Services have been working on sign language development for the past few years.
Many Papua New Guineans who are able to hear cannot communicate using sign language. Because of this, they are unable to communicate effectively with people who are deaf. People who are deaf then become reluctant to interact or make an attempt to communicate with the hearing people. And this can be rather frustrating, as people who are deaf may not be able to express themselves fully or effectively. Using sign language to communicate closes the gap between hearing people and the people with hearing impairment.
We are now working closely with the National Board of Disabled Persons, plus other NGOs and other special education resource centers to form deaf associations. So in that, when the different provinces have deaf associations, then that's where we'll strengthen the work of recognizing sign language, Papua New Guinea Sign Language as the third language. Because I think a lot of us, even we from experience from our deaf people, when they go to the bank and they try to do like banking and all this, because of the communication barrier, a lot of time they don't understand them and they feel left out, or even with a lot of abuse now that is happening with our deaf people, especially the female. A lot of them have been sexually abused or physically abused, and we have a problem with communication because the magistrate or the police cannot help them out in getting the statement on what actually happened. So that's where a lot of our special education resource centers, especially the teachers, are going in to interpret for them. So in Papua New Guinea now, I think sign language interpreters is a big problem. We don't have sign language interpreters in the country, so that's one area that Kalang Service is looking at. We will be having our first interpreters workshop in November to get 10 of our deaf resource unit teachers to come in and to learn how to interpret, because interpreting is, even though our teachers are interpreting in class, they are not actually at the level of other interpreters in the world. So we have invited one of our volunteers from New Zealand to come in and conduct the training.
Papua New Guinea does not have a national sign language book that can be used in schools. The only book available is the Melanesian Signs for Communication with the Deaf. This book has been around for 20 years but needs to be updated. This book is not that useful in secondary schools because some words are not found in the book, such as carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide.
If you look at the Melanesian Sign Book, the book itself has 3,000 words. By looking at the vocabulary that we have in the world, it's not 3,000 words, it's more than that. It's over 1,000 words vocabulary that we have. So that's the main reason why we are developing the new science in the country. So we so far have collected 3,085 new words that we are working on to develop science on them. So these are mainly words that are found in the classroom, subject words and words that are commonly used. We are not just picking any words that we come across, but we are picking words that are commonly used at the homes and also relevant to our situation or our standard here in Papua New Guinea.
Since 2012, a team came together to redevelop the Melanesian Signs for Communication with the Deaf book. They have been developing words with their descriptions and also photographs. These newly developed words will be included in the PNG Sign Language for Communication with the Deaf book. The signs in this book will be used by hearing impaired people in PNG. However, the task of redeveloping this book is not easy.
In all the information that has been collected from the last 2012, 2013, and this year 2014, and putting all things together, all the signs according to the alphabet. Like in 2012, we have the like A, B, C, D to Z. We have all the signs in them. 2013, we also have A to Z, all the signs being developed so far.
The Melanesian Sign Book, they developed that I think in 1991 or 2, around that time. So that's where they get all our deaf people to, and especially our deaf children, to use that book. But before that, people were using their own natural or what will I say, home signs that they have. But now with this Melanesian Sign Book, it's like a common language that all deaf people in the country are using.
In the redevelopment of the book, people with hearing impairment are included in the team as they will be the ones using the signs and identifying words that are not in the sign language book. This gives them the opportunity to evaluate and give their opinion to the working committee whether to use the sign or not.
We, the hearing people, we are sort of like supporting our kids with the hearing impairment. We bring them all over the country, selected ones, bringing them to a workshop, and then we organize it in a way that they themselves agree on the signs. We just facilitate it. Because with the hearing people, sometimes when we get the signs, it might not suit them because that's not our language, because we use spoken language often. As their language is sign language.
In this last segment, we show the difficulties faced by people with hearing impairment in Ghana, a country in Africa. The challenges they face are no different to those faced here in Papua New Guinea. There are 70 million deaf people around the world. It is estimated that 80% of these people live in developing countries where authorities are rarely familiar with their needs or desires.
Bachua Jesse Irene. Bachua Jesse Irene. Bachua, it's your consultation now. I've called you several times. You didn't mention.
Sit here. Good. Be careful. And then come and sit here for us.
Sayram, you are welcome. So, when did this start? My God.
No, he's asking you when they started. When did they start? Hey.
Can we get anybody here who can interpret the sign language?
No, doctor, I'm not sure we have anybody who can interpret that.
Can you call me Frimpong, please? The sign language interpreter. Let him come right now. How are you?
Fine, sir.
One of our members is sick at the hospital and he needs a sign language interpreter.
Okay. So, yeah, last time I came with my daughter, and in fact you wanted to communicate with me, but I didn't hear it. So I thought you get medicine for me. And when I took the medicine, in fact, I was not feeling good at all. So I have to stop taking the medicine and come back here again to see you with my interpreter. Yeah.
It's good we are here today with the client, and I wish you have a person like you to be interpreting the sign languages to assist us give proper diagnosis and treatment to patients of this nature.
Now, one of the major challenges that deaf people face in the world is communication in terms of how to communicate with the larger society. And because of that barrier, there is a huge unemployment gap. Deaf persons face a huge challenge of employment. And so we would like to make a special appeal for more sign language interpreters to be trained, sign language interpreters to be mainstreamed into the healthcare delivery system so that deaf people can access healthcare services in Ghana.
And that's all we have time for on Olsem Wanem. I hope you have learned some facts about sign language. People with hearing impairment are just like everyone else and should not be categorized as being mentally disabled. If you have a sibling, child, or a family member who has hearing impairment, it is important to be able to communicate with them using sign language so that they do not feel frustrated when trying to communicate with you. If you have any comments or stories you would like to share, please contact us via the address on your screen or visit us on our Facebook page. For now, enjoy the rest of your viewing.